We treat our hair as a matter of aesthetics, something to be styled, managed, or corrected according to the mirror's demands. But in the language of biology, texture is never an accessory. It is a clear response to the environment. Whether your hair is pinned straight, wavy, or tightly coiled was decided tens of thousands of years ago by the thermal requirements of a landscape you have likely never visited. Having lost almost all its protective fur during a critical evolutionary window, the human body retained a complex hair structure on the scalp for one reason: to protect the most expensive organ you own, your brain. And if you are a descendant of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, from the Navajo Plains to the Andean peaks, your hair holds a specific, startling secret. You might wonder why your hair shares a near-identical structural DNA with populations halfway across the globe in East Asia, despite thousands of years of separation. This is not a coincidence. It is a genetic signal that survived a 25,000-kilometer journey over a bridge that no longer exists. We will get to that bridge soon, and why its legacy is the reason your hair looks exactly the way it does today. But first, we need to understand the process, because you might be thinking that your hair is just dead material. It isn't. Your hair is being manufactured in a high-pressure production site 3 millimeters beneath your skin. This is not a story about style. This is a story about the physics of survival. Before we can trace the ancient paths of your ancestors, we have to look at the production site that builds your hair. To understand why your hair twists or stays straight, we have to travel 3 millimeters into the scalp, down to the hair follicle. Think of this follicle not as a simple hole, but as a biological extrusion die, a precision production site. This is where the follicle code is written. The production site takes liquid keratin and forces it upward. If your production site is perfectly circular and deep, the keratin is pressed out evenly. The result is a symmetrical, cylindrical strand that emerges as straight hair. It is a simple, efficient process of vertical growth. But for millions of you, the mechanics are far more complex. In many humans, the follicle opening is not a circle. It is an oval, a flattened slit, or even a kidney shape. As the liquid keratin is forced through this asymmetrical channel, it experiences uneven physical tension. One side of the developing hair shaft is compressed, while the other is stretched. Imagine trying to push a flat ribbon through a narrow, curved pipe. The ribbon cannot stay straight. It is forced to bend against its own walls. As the hair reaches the surface and air hits the keratin, it hardens, locking this internal tension into its permanent structure. The hair doesn't just grow curly, it is literally twisted into shape by the pressure of the forge that created it. The degree of that twist is determined by the specific angle and shape of that production site. This is where biology meets engineering, creating a fiber so strong it can support the weight of an entire human body, while remaining flexible enough to flow in the wind. In the open savannas of Africa, our ancestors faced a lethal complication. As we moved from the shade of the forests into the midday heat, our brains became our greatest liability. Once its temperature passes 42 degrees Celsius, the proteins inside the brain cells begin to denature. They literally start to break down. Evolution turned our skin into a massive radiator through sweat, but the scalp remained a problem. Straight hair, when wet with sweat, collapses and clings to the scalp like a sodden, hot blanket that traps heat and delivers it directly to the skull. In that environment, flat hair had one weakness: it created less distance between the sun and the scalp. Nature's solution was the heat shield, the tightly coiled strand. Tightly coiled hair had a practical advantage. Because these coils grow upward and outward, they lift the hair away from the skin, creating a natural air cushion, a buffer zone between the equatorial sun and the brain. Even better, It creates a mechanism for air circulation. As you move, air flows through these gaps, evaporating sweat and cooling the head through passive ventilation. It helped keep the head working when heat would send many animals back into the shade. But you might be thinking, if this heat shield is so perfect, why was it ever abandoned? Why did nature develop a completely new, dense architecture of thick, straight hair? The answer lies in a migration into a world of ice, where heat was no longer the enemy, but the most precious resource to be guarded. In the sub-zero temperatures of the north, volume was no longer your friend. An air cushion meant losing heat. What our ancestors needed now was not ventilation, but insulation. This is where the EDAR mutation occurred. This genetic variant fundamentally changed how the production site worked. It stopped producing the twist and instead forced the follicle to produce a hair shaft that was significantly thicker and more dense, a biological high-performance material. Think of this new texture as a massive protective wall. By increasing the diameter of each individual strand, nature created a structure that could pack more keratin into a smaller space. This dense layer acted like a heavy windproof coat for the scalp. It prevented the brutal Arctic winds from stripping moisture away and sealed in the body heat the brain desperately needed to maintain cognitive function. That is what makes EDAR so striking. It did not touch only hair. It touched a whole developmental pathway: hair, sweat glands, teeth. This wasn't a minor change. It was a permanent genetic tag carried by a group of humans waiting for the path to the new world to open. In this treeless environment, thick, straight hair became more than a surface trait. It fit a world of cold air, open land, and relentless wind. While East Asia developed your hair into a protective wall and Africa perfected it as a heat shield, Europe became a biological crossroads. Because Europe is a peninsula at the edge of the Eurasian landmass, it served as a destination for multiple waves of migration. Hunters from the tundra met farmers from the Mediterranean. In the far north, under weak skies, the body needed to maximize vitamin D, leading to the rise of light skin and blonde hair to let more light in. But because the climate wasn't as extreme as the Saharan heat or the Arctic wind, the production sites of the hair follicles in Europe never committed to one single architecture. There was no single selection pressure to freeze a specific design. Europe did not produce one clean hair pattern. It collected many of them. This created a massive spectrum of textures within a single family: blonde straight hair, dark curls, and brown waves. Europe teaches us that hair is not a fixed label, but a visible testament to a history where different groups merged their genetic codes. It is a record of 40,000 years of blending, a territory where the strict rules of the equator and the Arctic were softened into a mosaic of diversity that continues to change with every generation. This brings us back to the mystery of the Americas. For the indigenous peoples, hair texture is proof of human persistence. When the first ancestors left Siberia, they didn't just walk across a bridge. They lived on the Bering Land Bridge, a continent called Beringia, for 10,000 years. In this treeless environment, thick, straight hair became more than a surface trait. It fit a world of cold air, open land, and relentless wind. Here, the production sites of the hair follicles were locked into the architecture we see today. Those ancestors carried that signal from Alaska to Chile, from the Navajo in the north to the Maya in the south. You see that same thick, straight hair, a biological thread that survived 15,000 miles of migration. Looking in the mirror, you see a 50,000-year-old map. You are looking at the culmination of an incredible journey across ice and fire. Your hair is not just weight on your head. It is a structure shaped by heat, cold, migration, and inheritance. You are the result of a system that worked, a story still being written, 1 millimeter at a time, 3 millimeters beneath your skin.